All right, welcome to Generation Overlap, hosted by myself, Shauna Payne Gold, and my wonderful Generation Z son, Trey Gold. How you doing today?
I am do I am doing well this morning. I'm doing
Good.
I'm doing well this morning. I got a bunch of things done.
Oh, excuse me, Mr. Productivity. Okay.
Hmm.
Well, we're on this podcast right now, so clearly you were getting a lot done today, so that's great.
Yeah.
So, this is season one, episode one of Generation Overlap. And this is what happens when two generations sit down to unpack the headlines. We bring together this lived experience of Gen X and the fresh perspective of Gen Z to explore cultural events, the shifting world that we share, and of course, politics. So, this podcast isn't about agreeing, it's about understanding. And each episode highlights where generations collide, where they connect, and how those overlaps shape the way we see pretty much everything: politics, technology, justice, and everyday life. So, we're going to get started with episode one, which first we got to have to give them a preface of generational years. So, years of each generation. We may not do this every podcast, but we
No.
want to make sure we start with the generations, right?
Yeah.
So let's start with that, Trey. Give us the
Yeah.
years, the general years of generations.
Which may yes, thank you. Which mainly maybe your generation will not be up here, but I did start from the year from baby boomers. So
Okay.
you're a baby boomer, tell us.
Mm-hmm.
So baby boomers range from the years of 1946 to 1964, which personally I think it's kind of funny and sometimes kind of cute because somehow they ended from 46 to 64.
That's true. That's true. And that's your grandparents kind of,
Yeah,
that's their generation, right?
yes. And
And then
then,
we have my generation, the best generation.
yeah,
Hmm.
sometimes. Don't get ahead of
Sometimes.
you.
Hmm. Gen X, we are the best, 1965 to 1980. Then we have millennials or Generation Y, which, so
Mhm.
Trey, this is what I don't understand. So this generation goes from around about 1981 to 1996, but millennials, it's almost like a slur term that people use because they act like millennials are still young people, like middle school, high school, and they're grown. They're
Yes,
grown-ups.
yes, because yes, and mainly I do not understand which
Hmm.
one. I I get it if like as an example, I see a video, right?
Hmm.
Like this mom going to a party. It was
Hmm.
like a gender reveal party.
Okay.
And she like acting like kids. It's it's like I feel like it's a range.
Yeah.
It's like it's a range where it's appropriate, like if you're playing with kids, because it's like your family and you haven't seen them in a long time.
Right.
To basically just acting like a straight up 7 year old,
Mm-hmm.
which main
Mm-hmm.
which mainly like it doesn't make sense.
So it sounds like the generation and the year of birth has nothing to do with maturity and how they act.
No, and sometimes people think that they think
Mm,
they think that Gen Gen Z is just crazy and
mm-hmm.
they're just crazy because they were born from the years 1997 to 2012 and
Mm-hmm.
2012 was roughly about I wouldn't yeah 13 years ago, almost
Mm-hmm.
14 in if
Mm,
in about 2 days.
mm-hmm. Yep.
And so they think that we're still acting like 7 and 8 year olds when
Mm-hmm.
mainly most of us, mainly most of us as adults, we're just
Mm-hmm.
being fun adults because most of us are in our 20s. As
Yeah.
you see here, if I
So
can,
teenagers and young adults.
Yes, which mainly I have subtracted right now that
Mm-hmm.
that from 2025 and 1997, they've only been around for 18 years, 28 years old.
Okay. Okay, there
Like
you go.
28, like when it hits 28 to 29, that's
Mm-hmm.
usually when they calm down, but it's around where they're allowed to act their
Mm-hmm.
age because I've seen most 20 to 28-year olds, they
Mm-hmm.
they act how they're supposed to act. They know when they have bills to pay, but they still know how to,
Responsibilities.
yes, but they
Mm.
still know how to have fun.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay. I got
millennials
you.
think that they can just have fun when they have bills, and then they're surprised when stuff happens to
Mm.
them. And then
Okay.
sometimes they blame Gen Z because there
Mm-hmm.
was a story that I heard
Mm-hmm.
from Reddit. I do not know if it is true or not. They
Mm-hmm.
say it's true that like this mom basically like wants to party all the time and then leaves the oldest child, 17 years old, mind you, Gen Z, to take care of the rest of the kids. And then blames her when like they get into legal trouble and stuff when it's like you're wasting on your money when you have kids. And then you get mad
Mm-hmm.
at them when they're not taking care of them because you decide to
Mm-hmm.
have them and you think that you're allowed to and you think you're allowed to have kids, but your mindset is that they're an adult, so I'm teaching them responsibility.
Mm.
When you're teaching them responsibility, but in the wrong way,
Mm.
because
Mm-hmm.
sooner or later it's going to become a problem. Like this one time where this was also part of a Reddit story where her mother was just going to like the Bahamas and stuff with the adoption
Mm.
money because she kept adopting kids
Oh,
like
wow.
with like disabilities, like one with like diabetes and like stuff
Mm.
and other stuff. And like she left them alone. So then this girl had to go to hospital visits, miss most days of school. But
Mm-hmm.
then she coaches the kids to tell them that everything is okay. When truly
Mm.
it isn't. So she has to go around everywhere trying to get evidence
Yep.
for her mother
Yep.
not to be allowed to adopt kids and all of them to go into foster care.
But you know what? What's interesting about that, again, that's a great example of how the year, their age, their generation does not match their maturity level at all.
Because they're acting like they're 21, 20, like
Mm-hmm.
they're straight up out of high school when they're
Mm-hmm.
not.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly they're reaching the age of where minus sorry,
Mm-hmm. You're calculating?
yes,
Mm-hmm.
millennials.
That's a great example from Reddit.
Yes. It's like here, the oldest like millennial was 44. Like
Right.
you're between the ages of four of 29 to 44.
Mm-hmm.
What because in my opinion, I think 29 to 32, because those are the years after Gen Z, you're allowed to have a little fun. But then
Right.
like but then soon you need to lock in because you need to have a job and make money for your family.
Right.
And instead of like expecting your younger kids to do that just
Mm-hmm.
because they're becoming an adult, even though they're an adult, they
Yeah.
have their own thing, they have their own bills to pay and their
That's right.
own things to do. And you
That's
think
right.
that they can take care of you while
Mm-hmm.
doing that when no, you're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be working a job, which
Mm-hmm.
I have a family member on my dad's side, my
Mm-hmm.
grandfather. He
Mm-hmm.
he still works. Not saying
Mm-hmm.
he's at an age where he shouldn't be working, but he still works even though people said that he should retire because he's worked a long time.
Right.
And he still worked to provide for his family if anything happens.
Right.
But other people just lay back, even like
Mm-hmm.
even like 15 to 25 years before they're supposed to retire, saying, I'm allowed to retire, I'm allowed to have fun.
Right. Right. That's right. That's right. Well,
Mhm.
now, so you're bringing up a point around, so Generation Alpha, those are probably the kids that are being taken care of by the older siblings, right? Based on the example that you gave. Generation Alpha, so that's little brother's generation. And so I'm always anxious to hear, what are you learning from your little brother's friends, and so forth. Maybe one time we'll have him as a cameo guest on the podcast. But for now, we know that they are not necessarily all babies, but some are babies. And a lot of them were born across the COVID year because 2020 into now 2025, those are babies that were born under different circumstances. So, parents where both parents might not have been able, the father or one of the parents may not have been able to come to the hospital because of COVID restrictions. And so they had to bond with their child later on, or school, maybe not being able to actually go to a preschool until a certain age because of the COVID restrictions. So that's
Mhm.
baby brother's generation. And now we're coming up, the next generation that's going to be born. The name right now is Generation Beta. But as these generations grow older and evolve, they kind of adopt their own personalities. Um, Generally, either their own personalities as a generation, or there's something that happens in the world that categorizes them. So it literally might be a situation where Generation Alpha, some of those kids might be called the COVID generation because their life experience was so shaped by COVID happening, right? And
Yeah.
so these are all the breakdowns of the generations that Trey pulled from Good Morning America. I just want to give a little bit of a caveat too, that as I've learned and read about different generations, there's not hard and fast agreement on the exact years of each generation. They are very loosely kind of translated by sociologists and professors and things that research these topics. But Trey, before we wrap up this first episode, I want to ask you really quickly, based on everything you've read about the generations, what made you so curious about doing more research on the differences in the generations to begin with? Because we started talking about this earlier, many, many months ago, where we talked about the different generations. And you're very fortunate to have literally every generation that's on this list, except for Generation Beta, you have in your family, because we have longevity, thank goodness, in our family, and great grandparents and grandparents and so forth. So, what made you curious about generations in the first place?
Which, well, what made me curious was mainly I personally, when I first started thinking about like generations and stuff,
Hmm.
I personally thought that like generations would like span it from like a decade, from like
Okay.
example like 1990 to 1999. It goes from the start of
Right.
the year that ends with 0 to 9.
Hmm.
So
Yep.
yeah, so basically I thought the generations names would just come on from like a main event. So like
Gotcha. Okay.
yes, their example is like the COVID years. And then
Hmm.
like millennials, I guess.
Hmm.
Some of them
Yep.
say like their generation's called the Furby generation because like Furbies.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Exactly. Yep. No, that makes complete sense. And so, really it's interesting the way generations work, because like I mentioned, a entire generation, not that everybody has the same personality or characteristics, but they've experienced similar things. Like Granny's generation prior to the baby boomers, they're called the silent generation. They experienced a common experience, which was the Depression, right? In the United States. Baby boomers experienced something different. My generation experienced 9/11 and a bunch of other things as well. So each generation is kind of shaped by their common experience of something. If you ask any Gen Xer, what were they doing during 9/11? Well, Trey, you as a kid that's a Gen Zer, you probably, obviously, social media, you can look it up there, but you're probably going to hear about this in your US history class, whereas mommy's generation lived it, and we know what was happening in the real world at that time. So With that being said, I hope we gave people a really nice overview of generations and some common examples of how generations show up. And really, it's a guide to help us to think through what we've experienced similarly, what we can expect. And hopefully, every time another generation comes forward, we can think about their common experiences and figure out how to support them and understand them better. Okay. So, with that, that's the end of episode one. Again, this is a micro podcast called Generation Overlap, hosted by me, Gen X, and Trey Gold, Gen Z. And so, we'll see you next time.